Some bridges burn only once, and that's a good thing.
The smell hit me first, gin and somebody else's cologne. Lauren stumbled through our front door at 2:47 a.m., 3 days before our wedding, looking like she'd been wrestling with her conscience and losing badly. "We need to talk," she slurred, mascara streaked down her cheeks like war paint. I set down my coffee mug. I'd been waiting up, going over the final guest list for Saturday's ceremony. 230 people, most of them her family and friends. The deposit alone had cost me 6 months of overtime at Morrison & Associates, where I ran the sales department. "Let me guess," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Cold feet?" Lauren collapsed onto our beige sectional, the one we'd picked out together at IKEA last spring. She'd insisted on beige because it was sophisticated. I'd wanted navy blue. "Nick, I can't marry you." The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. I'd been expecting this conversation for weeks, ever since I'd noticed the little changes. The way she'd started working late every Tuesday and Thursday. How her phone never left her hand anymore. The new lingerie I'd found in her drawer. Tags still on, definitely not meant for me. "Okay," I said, sitting across from her. "Why?" "I'm in love with someone else." "Who?" She looked up at me with those green eyes that had first caught my attention at the company Christmas party 3 years ago. Back then, she'd been Lauren Mitchell, ambitious junior sales rep with a stunning smile and a laugh that could fill a room. "Your brother." I actually laughed. Tom was 28, drove a beat-up Honda Civic, and lived in a studio apartment above a Chinese restaurant. He made decent money as an account coordinator at our company, but Lauren had champagne tastes on a beer budget, always had. "Tom?" I shook my head. "Lauren, Tom can barely afford his rent." "It's not about money, Nick. It's about passion. Real connection." "Right." I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself another cup of coffee. My hands were surprisingly steady. "So what's the plan? You two going to ride off into the sunset together?" "Don't be sarcastic." "I'm not being sarcastic. I'm genuinely curious about the logistics here. We've got a wedding in 3 days. The venue's paid for, the caterer's prepping food for 230 people. Your dress is hanging in our closet, and my entire family is flying in from Chicago." Lauren started crying again. "I know the timing is terrible." "The timing's perfect, actually." I sat back down, studying her face. "You know what I think? I think you've been planning this for a while. I think you've been looking for an exit strategy, and Tom just happened to be convenient." "That's not true." "Isn't it? When's the last time you and Tom actually spent time together? Real time, not just bumping into each other at company events?" She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "We've been talking a lot about everything. He understands me in ways you never did." "Talking where? What do you mean?" "I mean, where do you and Tom have these deep, meaningful conversations? His apartment here, the office, coffee shops?" Lauren's eyes flickered, just for a second, but I caught it. "Different places." "Huh?" I leaned back in my chair. "Well, I'm not going to fight you on this, Lauren. If you want Tom, you can have him. I'm not holding you back." She blinked, clearly expecting more of a reaction. "That's it? What did you want? A big dramatic scene? Begging? Threats?" I don't know. I thought you'd be more upset." "Oh, I'm upset. I'm furious, actually, but I'm also curious." I took a sip of my coffee. "See, I've been watching you these past few weeks. Little things. The way you smile at your phone. How you've suddenly become very interested in working late on specific days. The fact that you bought new underwear and haven't worn it for me." Lauren's face went pale. "So here's what I'm thinking," I continued. "I think there's more to this story than you're telling me. And I think I'm going to find out what it is." "Nick, go pack a bag. Stay at your sister's place for a few days. Give us both some space to figure this out." She stood up slowly, swaying slightly. "What about the wedding?" "I'll handle the cancellations. Don't worry about it." As she stumbled toward our bedroom, I pulled out my phone and opened the security app for our building's parking garage. Morrison & Associates leased the entire third floor of the Hartwell building downtown, and employee parking was on level C. I scrolled back through 3 weeks of footage looking for Lauren's silver Audi. There it was, Tuesday night, 8:47 p.m. She'd told me she was working late on the Henderson account, but there was someone with her. Someone tall wearing an expensive suit. Someone who definitely wasn't my brother Tom. Paul Bennett, Senior Sales Director. My direct competitor for the regional manager position that was opening up next month. Married to a lawyer, lived in a penthouse downtown, drove a BMW that cost more than I made in a year. I screenshotted the image and saved it to my phone. Lauren emerged from the bedroom 20 minutes later with an overnight bag, looking slightly more sober and significantly more nervous. Nick, I want you to know that I never meant for this to happen. Save it? I didn't look up from my laptop, where I was already drafting emails to cancel the florist and the photographer. Just go. After she left, I sat in the quiet of our apartment, my apartment now, and started making a list. Not a to-do list for canceling a wedding. A different kind of list entirely. At the top, I wrote, let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. Monday morning at Morrison & Associates felt like walking into a fishbowl. Word travels fast in a company of 300 people, especially when it involves a canceled wedding and office drama. Janine Torres, my assistant, appeared at my desk with coffee and a sympathetic smile. Rough weekend? You could say that. I logged into my computer and checked my calendar. Back-to-back meetings until 6, including a strategy session with Paul Bennett's team. Perfect. The Henderson account files you requested, Janine said, sliding a folder across my desk. Everything's there, including the client communication logs. I opened the folder and immediately saw what I was looking for. Lauren had logged exactly 0 hours on the Henderson account over the past month. Her timesheet showed her working late on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but there was no corresponding work product. Janine, can you do me a favor? Pull the security logs for level C parking. I want to see who's been accessing the garage after hours. Any particular reason? Call it curiosity. She raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Janine had been with the company for 8 years and had seen enough office drama to know when to ask questions and when to just follow orders. At lunch, I drove to Flanagan's, the dive bar 3 blocks from the office where half our sales team went to decompress. The lunch crowd was thin. A few construction workers, some retirees watching ESPN, and Melissa Chang nursing a vodka tonic in a corner booth. Melissa was Lauren's best friend and self-appointed life coach. She worked in marketing and had opinions about everything, especially other people's relationships. I ordered a beer and casually wandered over to her table. Hey, Melissa, mind if I sit? She looked up from her phone, clearly uncomfortable. Nick, hi, I heard about... I'm really sorry. Thanks. I sat down without waiting for an invitation. Can I ask you something? Sure. How long have you known about Lauren and Tom? Melissa's grip tightened on her drink. I don't know what you mean. Come on, you're her best friend. She tells you everything. How long has she been planning to leave me for my brother? Nick, I really don't think I should... It's okay. I'm not angry. I'm just trying to understand the timeline here. When did she first mention having feelings for Tom? Melissa took a long sip of her vodka tonic. Maybe 6 weeks ago? She said she'd been talking to him more at work, and she was starting to see him differently. 6 weeks. Interesting. I made a mental note. What did she say exactly? Just that she felt like you two had grown apart, and Tom was, I don't know, more attentive, more interested in what she had to say. Did she mention where they were spending time together? I mean, Tom's place is pretty small for deep conversations. I think hotels, maybe. She said they needed somewhere private to talk. Hotels, plural, for talking. Makes sense, I said. Tom always was a good listener. Melissa relaxed slightly, apparently convinced I was taking this well. You know what's funny? I continued. I ran into Tom yesterday at the grocery store. He seemed really surprised to hear about the breakup, almost like he didn't know it was coming. Oh, Melissa's face went pale. Maybe Lauren hadn't told him yet? Maybe. I finished my beer and stood up. Thanks for being honest with me, Melissa. It helps to know what really happened. As I walked back to the office, I called my college roommate, Danny, who now worked as a private investigator in Boston. Nick, how's married life treating you? Wait, wasn't your wedding this past weekend? About that, I need a favor. 2 hours later, Danny was sitting in my office, looking like he'd stepped out of a detective novel. Rumpled suit, 5 o'clock shadow, and eyes that missed nothing. So let me get this straight, he said, reviewing my notes. Your fiancée claims she's leaving you for your brother, but your brother doesn't seem to know anything about it. Meanwhile, you've got security footage of her with a different guy entirely. That's the situation. And you want me to what, exactly? Find out what's really going on, who she's actually seeing, how long it's been happening, and why she's using Tom as a cover story. Danny leaned back in his chair. You sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes it's better not to know. I'm sure. Okay, I'll need photos, her schedule, access to her social media if you have it, and a retainer of $1,500. I wrote him a check. How long? Give me a week. That afternoon's strategy meeting was enlightening. Paul Bennett strutted into the conference room wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His silver hair perfectly styled, his smile just a little too confident. "Nick, sorry to hear about the wedding situation," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Sometimes these things work out for the best. Thanks for the sympathy, Paul. Really heartfelt." He laughed like we were old friends sharing a joke. "You know me, always looking on the bright side." During the meeting, I watched him carefully. Paul was good at his job, I had to give him that, but he was also arrogant. The kind of guy who thought he was smarter than everyone else in the room and usually was, which made him careless. He checked his phone 3 times during the hour-long meeting. Each time, he smiled slightly before putting it away. After everyone else left, I lingered to clean up my papers. "Paul, quick question. You know my brother Tom, right? From accounting?" "Sure, good kid. Why?" "Just wondering if you've seen him around lately. We were supposed to grab dinner this week, but he's been hard to reach." Paul's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Can't say I've noticed. You know how it is? Different departments, different schedules?" "Right, different schedules." That evening, I drove to Tom's apartment above Golden Dragon Chinese restaurant. The smell of sweet and sour pork followed me up the narrow staircase to his door. Tom answered on the second knock wearing sweatpants and a Patriots jersey, holding a container of lo mein. "Nick, what's up, man? Want some Chinese food?" I studied his face carefully. He looked genuinely happy to see me, with no trace of guilt or awkwardness. "Can we talk?" "Sure, come in. Sorry about the mess." His studio apartment was exactly what you'd expect from a 28-year-old bachelor. Unmade bed, clothes on the floor, empty beer bottles on the coffee table, and a massive TV dominating one wall. "Tom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay." He set down his lo mein and gave me his full attention. "Are you having an affair with Lauren?" Tom's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, surprise, and then something that looked like hurt. "What? No! Nick, what the heck? Why would you even ask me that?" "Because she told me she was leaving me for you." "She what?" Tom stood up, pacing to the window and back. "When did she tell you this?" "Saturday night. She came home drunk and said she couldn't marry me because she was in love with you." "That's insane. I barely talk to Lauren outside of work stuff. I mean, she's nice and everything, but she's your fiancé." "Was your fiancé, whatever." I believed him. Tom was a terrible liar. Always had been, even as a kid. "So, you haven't been having secret meetings with her? Deep conversations about your feelings?" "No. The last time I had a real conversation with Lauren was at the company picnic in July, and that was about the weather." "Interesting." "Nick, what's going on? Why would she say that?" I told him about the security footage, about Melissa's comments, about Paul's behavior in the meeting. Tom listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. "That bastard," he said finally. "She's using me as a cover story." "That's what I think too. But why? Why not just tell you the truth? Because Paul's married, and because if word gets out that she's sleeping with a senior director, it could affect both their careers. But if everyone thinks she left me for you, it just looks like a messy family situation." Tom cracked his knuckles, a habit he'd had since childhood when he was angry. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to find out exactly what's been going on, and then I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth. Count me in." "Tom, you don't have to." "She dragged my name into this. She made me look like the kind of guy who would steal his brother's fiancée." "Yeah, I'm in." Wednesday morning brought the first piece of hard evidence. Danny called at 7 a.m. with an update. "Your instincts were right. I followed her yesterday from her sister's place to the Marriott downtown. She met Paul Bennett in the lobby at 2 p.m. They went upstairs together and didn't come back down until 5:30. Did you get photos? Hotel lobby, elevator, them leaving together, all very cozy, lots of hand-holding and kissing. What about the timeline? How long has this been going on?" "I talked to a bartender at the Marriott who knows them, says they've been regulars for about 2 months, always the same routine, Tuesday and Thursday afternoons." 2 months, right around the time Lauren started working late, on the Henderson account. "There's something else," Danny continued. "I did some digging into Bennett's finances. Guy's got some serious debts. His wife's law firm is going through a messy partnership dissolution, and he's been covering her legal fees. Plus, he's got a gambling problem, owes about 40 grand to some very unfriendly people in Boston. 40,000? Yeah. And here's the kicker. Your girl Lauren has been helping him out. I tracked several cash deposits into his account over the past month, all from her. My blood went cold. How much? Total? About 15 grand. Money she withdrew from your joint savings account? I hung up and immediately logged into our bank account online. Sure enough, there were 6 withdrawals over the past 4 weeks, each for $2,500. The account that was supposed to pay for our honeymoon in Italy was nearly empty. That afternoon, I called a meeting with Mason Webb, our HR director. Mason was a company man through and through, lived and breathed corporate policy, took inappropriate workplace behavior complaints very seriously, and had never liked me much. Nick, I heard about your personal situation. I hope this won't affect your work performance. Actually, Mason, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I think we might have a problem. I laid out the situation carefully, sticking to facts I could prove, the security footage of Lauren and Paul together, the falsified timesheets showing work on accounts she wasn't actually handling, the pattern of after-hours meetings that had nothing to do with company business. These are serious allegations, Mason said, adjusting his glasses. I'm not making allegations. I'm reporting what I've observed and asking you to investigate. You understand that if we investigate and find evidence of misconduct, both employees could face disciplinary action up to and including termination. I understand. Mason made notes in his leather portfolio. I'll need copies of any documentation you have. Already prepared. I slid a folder across his desk containing printouts of the security footage, Lauren's falsified timesheets, and a timeline of events. I'll look into this immediately. By Thursday afternoon, the rumor mill was in full swing. Word had leaked about the HR investigation, and suddenly everyone had an opinion about Lauren and Paul's friendship. I was grabbing coffee in the break room when I overheard 2 women from accounting discussing the situation. I always thought something was going on there, one said. The way they looked at each other in meetings. Poor Nick, the other replied. First his fiancée cheats on him, now this. Wait, I thought she left him for his brother. That's what everyone said at first, but apparently that was just a cover story. She's actually been sleeping with Paul Bennett. I smiled to myself and walked back to my office. Friday brought the first real confrontation. Paul cornered me in the parking garage after work, his usual smooth demeanor replaced by barely controlled anger. You son of a witch, he said, backing me against my car. You went to HR. I reported what I observed. If you have a problem with that, maybe you should examine your own behavior. You're trying to destroy my career over a woman who doesn't want you. I'm trying to protect the company from employees who lie on their timesheets and use company resources for personal business. Paul stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne, the same scent I detected on Lauren Saturday night. You think you're so smart, don't you? The clever little underdog who figured it all out. I think I'm observant. There's a difference. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to HR and tell them you made a mistake, that you were upset about your breakup and you misinterpreted some innocent interactions. Or what? Paul's smile was cold. Or I'll make sure everyone knows exactly why Lauren really left you. Trust me, the truth isn't as flattering as you think. Enlighten me. You're boring, Nick. Predictable, safe. Lauren told me all about your little suburban dreams. The house with a white picket fence, the 2.5 kids, the family vacations to Disney World. She said sleeping with you was like being married to her accountant. The words hit harder than I expected, but I kept my expression neutral. If that's true, why didn't she just break up with me months ago? Why the elaborate deception? Because she needed your money, obviously. You think her salary covers those designer clothes and expensive dinners? She's been planning her exit strategy for months, making sure she had enough saved up to start fresh. With you? Paul laughed. With whoever could give her the life she wanted. I was just convenient. So you're admitting to the affair. I'm admitting that your fiancé preferred spending time with a real man instead of a boring middle manager who thinks Olive Garden is fine dining. I nodded slowly. Good to know. So we have a deal? You withdraw your complaint? No deal, Paul. His face darkened. Then you're going to regret this. Maybe, but you're going to regret it more. As he walked away, I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording app. Every word of our conversation was now saved to the cloud. The following Monday brought chaos, Mason Webb called Paul and Lauren into separate meetings with HR, armed with my documentation and the recorded conversation from the parking garage. By lunch, Paul was suspended pending a full investigation. Lauren, technically no longer an employee since she'd submitted her resignation the previous Friday, was banned from the building. But the real fireworks started when Derek Morrison, Paul's closest friend and wingman, decided to take matters into his own hands. Derek worked in business development and had always been part of Paul's inner circle. He was the kind of guy who wore expensive watches and talked loudly about his golf handicap, convinced that everyone else was impressed by his lifestyle. He found me in Flanagan's after work, already 3 drinks deep and spoiling for a fight. "Nick freaking Carver," he said, sliding into the booth across from me without invitation. "The man of the hour. Derek, you seem upset. You destroyed a good man's career over your own jealousy." I reported policy violations. If Paul's career is destroyed, he did that himself. Derek leaned forward, his breath reeking of whiskey. "You know what your problem is? You can't handle the fact that your woman preferred a better man. My problem is that my woman stole $15,000 from our joint account to pay her boyfriend's gambling debts." That stopped Derek cold. Clearly, Paul hadn't shared that particular detail. That's not what happened. Isn't it? Danny Morrison, no relation to you, by the way, is a private investigator, very thorough. Turns out Paul owes some dangerous people in Boston about 40 grand, and Lauren's been helping him pay it off with my money. Derek's face went pale. "You're lying." I pulled out my phone and showed him the bank records. 6 withdrawals, $2,500 each, all deposited into Paul's account within 24 hours. She did. And now Paul's suspended, Lauren's unemployed, and I'm out 15 grand. I finished my beer and stood up. But hey, at least I found out what kind of people I was dealing with before I married into this mess. Derek grabbed my arm as I tried to leave. "This isn't over." "Yeah, it is." But Derek was wrong. It wasn't over. Tuesday morning, I arrived at work to find my car keyed in the parking garage. Someone had scraped "loser" into the paint on the driver's side door. Janine was waiting at my desk with coffee and a sympathetic expression. "Security footage?" I asked. "Already pulled it. Derek Morrison, 11:47 p.m. last night." "Perfect." I called Mason Webb and reported the vandalism. By noon, Derek was in HR, explaining why he'd decided to destroy company property. My car was technically parked in a company-leased garage, but Derek's real mistake came that afternoon, when he decided to rally Lauren and Paul's friends for a coordinated counterattack. The plan, as I later learned, was to spread rumors about my mental health, my job performance, and my allegedly manipulative behavior toward Lauren. They figured if they could paint me as an unstable, controlling husband, people would be more sympathetic to Lauren's affair. Unfortunately for them, they chose the wrong messenger. Melissa Chang, already feeling guilty about her role in the deception, was approached by Derek to help spread the story. Instead, she came straight to my office. "Nick, I need to tell you something." I looked up from my computer, where I'd been working on the quarterly sales report. "What's up?" "Derek Morrison just asked me to tell people that Lauren left you because you were controlling and maybe violent." "Violent?" "He wants me to say that Lauren was afraid of you, that she had to sneak around with Paul because she was scared of how you'd react." I sat back in my chair, genuinely impressed by the audacity. "And what did you tell him?" "I told him to go to heck." Melissa sat down across from my desk. "Nick, I owe you an apology. I knew Lauren was lying about Tom. I knew she was seeing someone else, and I should have told you." "Why didn't you?" "Because she's my friend. Was my friend. But this is too far. Trying to make you look like a toxic partner to cover up her own behavior. That's not okay." "What changed your mind?" Melissa was quiet for a moment. "I talked to my sister this weekend. She went through a real harmful relationship, and when I told her what Derek wanted me to say, she lost it. She said people who lie about serious mistreatment make it harder for real victims to be believed." "Your sister's right. I know, and I'm sorry. Lauren's been using everyone, you, me, Tom, even Paul. She's not the person I thought she was." "Thank you for telling me. There's something else. Derek's planning to have a bunch of people confront you at Flanagan's tonight. He thinks if they all gang up on you, you'll back down and withdraw your complaint against Paul." I smiled. "That's interesting. Who's supposed to be there?" "Derek, obviously. Paul's not supposed to come. HR told him to stay away from you. But Derek thinks he can convince him. Plus some guys from business development, maybe a few people from marketing." "What time?" 7 o'clock. I checked my watch. It was 4:30. Melissa, can you do me a favor? Sure. Can you make sure Tom knows about this little gathering and maybe mention it to Janine? She's got a lot of friends in the company. Melissa smiled for the first time since she'd sat down. You want an audience? I want witnesses. At exactly 7 o'clock, I walked into Flanagan's to find Derek holding court at a large table near the back, surrounded by 6 other people from Morrison and Associates. Paul was there despite HR's warning, looking uncomfortable but trying to project confidence. The bar was more crowded than usual. Tom sat at the bar with 3 guys from accounting. Janine was in a corner booth with some women from admin. Even Mason Webb was there, nursing a beer and pretending to watch the baseball game on TV. Derek saw me first. Well, look who decided to show up. I walked over to their table, noting the faces around it. Business development, marketing, a couple of junior sales reps who probably didn't know what they were getting into. Derek, gentlemen, ladies, I understand you wanted to talk. Sit down, Derek said, gesturing to an empty chair. I'm good standing. Paul shifted uncomfortably. Nick, maybe we can work this out. Work what out, exactly? I kept my voice calm and conversational, but loud enough for nearby tables to hear. The fact that you've been sleeping with my fiancée for 2 months? The fact that she stole $15,000 from our joint account to pay your gambling debts? Or the fact that Derek here vandalized my car because he's upset that I reported your policy violations to HR? The table went quiet. A few people at nearby tables turned to listen. Derek's face flushed red. You're a vindictive little crap who can't handle losing. What did I lose exactly? Your woman, your wedding, your dignity. My woman was sleeping with a married man and stealing my money. My wedding would have been a sham. As for my dignity, I looked around the bar, noting all the familiar faces watching our conversation. I think I'm doing just fine. One of the junior sales reps, a kid named Jake, who couldn't have been more than 25, spoke up. Look, Nick, maybe Lauren made some mistakes, but trying to destroy Paul's career... Jake, right? I turned to face him. How long have you been with the company? 6 months. So you probably don't know that Paul's been falsifying client reports for the past year, or that he's been charging personal expenses to company accounts, or that he's currently under investigation by the State Gaming Commission for illegal sports betting. Jake's mouth fell open. So did several others. Paul stood up abruptly. That's enough. Is it? Because I've got bank records, security footage, recorded conversations, and testimony from multiple witnesses. How much evidence do you think is enough? You recorded our conversation? Derek demanded. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm part of. I pulled out my phone. Would you like to hear it? The part where Paul admits to the affair is particularly interesting. The bar had gone completely quiet now. Even the bartender was listening. Paul grabbed his jacket. I don't have to listen to this. No, you don't, but everyone else does. I looked around the room. See, here's the thing about the truth. It has a way of coming out eventually. You can try to spin it, cover it up, blame other people, but eventually, everyone finds out what really happened. Derek stood up, swaying slightly. You think you won? You think destroying Paul makes you look good? I think taking responsibility for your actions makes you look good. Lying, cheating, and stealing makes you look bad. It's not complicated. You sanctimonious prick! Derek lunged at me, clearly more drunk than I'd realized. I stepped aside and let momentum carry him into an empty table, sending glasses crashing to the floor. The bartender, a burly guy named Mickey who'd been breaking up fights for 20 years, was there instantly. That's enough, Derek. You're done for the night. As Mickey escorted Derek toward the door, I looked around at the remaining faces at the table. Most of them looked embarrassed, like they were realizing they'd been recruited for the wrong side of this fight. Anyone else want to discuss my character? I asked. No one spoke. I walked over to the bar and ordered a beer. Tom slid over to make room. That was something, he said quietly. That was just the warm-up. The next morning brought consequences. Derek was fired for vandalism and public intoxication. Apparently, Mickey the bartender had called the police after Derek tried to fight 2 other customers in the parking lot. Paul's suspension became a termination when HR discovered the falsified client reports I'd mentioned. Mason Webb called me into his office to get a formal statement about Paul's confession in the parking garage. This recording, Mason said, adjusting his glasses as he listened to Paul's voice through my phone speaker. He admits to multiple policy violations. He also admits that Lauren was stealing money from our joint account to pay his gambling debts. That's a matter for the police, not HR. I know. I'm filing a report this afternoon. Mason nodded approvingly. Good. We can't have employees involved in theft, even if the victim is a family member. But Lauren wasn't done fighting. That afternoon, she showed up at my apartment with her sister Jessica and 2 suitcases. I'm here for my things, she announced when I opened the door. Most of your stuff is already packed. It's in the bedroom. Jessica, who'd never liked me much, pushed past me into the living room. We also need to discuss the money. What money? The wedding deposits. Lauren's parents paid for half of everything. They want their money back. I almost laughed. The money that Lauren stole from our joint account? The money she gave to Paul Bennett to pay his gambling debts? Lauren's face went pale. I didn't steal anything. That was our money. It was our money. You took it without permission and gave it to your boyfriend. That's called theft. I was going to pay it back. With what? You're unemployed, remember? Jessica stepped between us. Look, Nick, we know you're upset. I'm not upset. I'm broke. Your sister cleaned out our savings account and left me with a $15,000 hole in my finances. Her parents want their money back? They can get in line behind me. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I've already filed a police report. Lauren committed theft, and I have bank records to prove it. Lauren started crying. Nick, please, I made a mistake, but we can work this out. No, we can't. You didn't make a mistake, Lauren. You made a series of calculated decisions over a period of months. You lied to me, cheated on me, stole from me, and tried to destroy my relationship with my brother by using him as a cover story. I never meant for Tom to get hurt. But you didn't care if he did, as long as it served your purposes. Jessica pulled out her phone. I'm calling our lawyer. Good idea. While you're at it, have him explain the difference between civil and criminal liability. Because right now, Lauren's looking at criminal charges for theft. After they left with Lauren's belongings, I sat in my empty apartment and took stock. The silence was actually peaceful. No more walking on eggshells, no more wondering where Lauren really was when she claimed to be working late. No more pretending not to notice the little lies and inconsistencies. My phone rang. Danny Morrison calling with an update. I've got more information about Paul Bennett's financial situation. It's worse than I thought. How much worse? He owes money to at least 3 different bookies, plus some loan sharks in Boston. Total debt is probably closer to $60,000 now, with interest and penalties. And Lauren knew about this? Oh, yeah. I talked to a cocktail waitress at one of the casinos where Paul plays poker. She says Lauren was with him several times, and she heard them arguing about money. Arguing how? Lauren was pressuring him to quit gambling, threatening to cut him off financially if he didn't get help. Paul was promising to quit, but kept playing anyway. So she knew exactly what she was getting into. Seems like it. There's something else, though. Paul's wife filed for divorce yesterday. That was news. How do you know? Public records. Irreconcilable differences, but she's also claiming financial misconduct and seeking a forensic accounting of their assets. Meaning she found out about the gambling. And probably about Lauren. Divorce lawyers are thorough. If Paul's been spending money on hotels and gifts for his girlfriend, she'll find out about it. What's the timeline for the divorce? Could take months, depending on how complicated their finances are. But here's the kicker. Paul's wife is asking for spousal support, and she wants him to pay her legal fees. Guy's going to be financially destroyed. After hanging up with Danny, I called Tom. Want to grab dinner? I've got news. We met at a steakhouse downtown, far enough from our usual haunts to avoid running into anyone from work. Paul's wife filed for divorce, I told him over appetizers. Tom whistled low. That was fast. Gets better. She's claiming financial misconduct and asking for forensic accounting. If she finds out about Lauren, it's going to get ugly. How ugly? Paul could end up owing his wife half of everything, plus spousal support, plus her legal fees. And he's still got the gambling debts. Guy's looking at financial ruin. Tom cut into his steak thoughtfully. What about Lauren? What about her? I mean, what's her plan now? Paul's broke, she's unemployed, and you're pressing charges for theft. I honestly don't know, and I don't care. But I was lying. I did care because I wasn't done with Lauren yet. Not by a long shot. The next day brought an unexpected visitor to my office. Paul's wife, Catherine Bennett, was a sharp-dressed woman in her early 40s with the kind of confidence that comes from years of winning legal battles. Mr. Carver? I'm Catherine Bennett. I wonder if we could talk. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. What can I do for you? I understand you've been investigating my husband's relationship with Lauren Mitchell. I reported policy violations to HR. The investigation was their decision. Catherine smiled. I'm not here to blame you. Actually, I wanted to thank you. For what? For forcing this situation into the open. I've suspected Paul was having an affair for months, but I couldn't prove it. Your HR complaint gave me the documentation I needed to file for divorce. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Don't be. Paul's been gambling away our savings for 2 years. I should have left him long ago. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. I have a proposition for you. I'm listening. My forensic accountant found evidence that Paul used our joint credit cards to pay for hotel rooms, dinners, and gifts for his girlfriend. Total amount is about $12,000 over the past 3 months. Okay. I also found evidence that Lauren Mitchell deposited money into Paul's personal account, money that he used to pay gambling debts instead of household expenses. That money was stolen from my savings account. I know, and I think we can help each other get it back. Catherine laid out her plan. She was already suing Paul for divorce and financial misconduct. If I joined as a co-plaintiff, claiming that Paul had knowingly received stolen funds, we could force him to repay both of us. Paul doesn't have $15,000, I pointed out. No, but he has assets. His car, his watch collection, his golf club membership. We can force him to liquidate everything. What about Lauren? What about her? She's the one who actually stole the money. Catherine's smile was cold. Leave Lauren to me. I'm very good at making people's lives complicated. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Where do I sign? That afternoon, Paul Bennett received legal notice that he was being sued for knowingly receiving stolen funds. Lauren received notice that she was being sued for theft and fraud. By evening, my phone was ringing constantly. Lauren called 6 times, Paul called twice, even Derek Morrison called from whatever bar he was drowning his sorrows in. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I went to Flanagan's, where Tom was waiting with a beer and a satisfied expression. I heard about the lawsuit, he said. News travels fast. Janine may have mentioned it to a few people. We drank in comfortable silence for a while, watching the baseball game on TV. You know what's funny? Tom said eventually. What? A month ago, Lauren had everything. Job, fiancé, nice apartment, money in the bank, wedding planned, future all mapped out. And now? Now she's unemployed, single, broke, and facing criminal charges. I raised my beer. Here's to consequences. To consequences. But even as we toasted, I knew the real consequences were still coming. The final confrontation came on a Thursday evening, exactly 3 weeks after Lauren had stumbled into our apartment, reeking of gin and betrayal. I was working late at the office when Janine knocked on my door. There's someone here to see you. Who? Lauren's parents. Richard and Patricia Mitchell were old money Massachusetts, the kind of people who summered in the Hamptons and thought everyone else was slightly beneath them. They'd never approved of their daughter marrying a middle manager from a middle-class family, and they'd made that clear from the moment we'd gotten engaged. They walked into my office like they owned the building, Richard in a $1,000 suit and Patricia wearing enough jewelry to fund a small country. Nicholas, Richard said, not bothering to shake hands, we need to discuss this situation with Lauren. What situation is that? Patricia sat down without being invited, her lips pursed in disapproval. This vindictive campaign you're waging against our daughter? I'm not waging anything. I'm seeking legal remedies for theft and fraud. Lauren made a mistake. Lauren committed multiple felonies over a period of months. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern of criminal behavior. Richard leaned forward, trying to intimidate me with his presence. You're destroying her life over money. I'm holding her accountable for stealing my money. There's a difference. We're prepared to make this go away, Patricia said, opening her purse. We'll write you a check for the full amount, $15,000, if you drop all charges and lawsuits. I pretended to consider it. That's generous, but it doesn't cover the interest, legal fees, or emotional damages. How much? Richard asked through gritted teeth. $50,000. Patricia gasped. That's outrageous. Is it? Your daughter destroyed my wedding, stole my money, lied to my family, tried to ruin my brother's reputation, and caused me to lose 3 weeks of work dealing with this mess. $50,000 seems reasonable. We're not paying you $50,000, Richard said. Then Lauren can face the consequences of her actions. They left without another word. but I knew they'd be back. The next morning brought news that Paul Bennett had been arrested. Apparently, his gambling debts had caught up with him, and one of his creditors had decided to apply pressure by having him charged with writing bad checks. Catherine Bennett called me with the update. He's in jail until Monday's bail hearing. His lawyer says the creditors are circling like sharks. What does that mean for our lawsuit? It means we'll probably end up with pennies on the dollar, but at least Paul's life is completely ruined. And Lauren? Oh, I have plans for Lauren. I didn't ask what those plans were. Catherine Bennett was a family lawyer with 20 years of experience and a reputation for ruthlessness. I figured Lauren would find out soon enough. That afternoon, Tom called with interesting news. You're not going to believe this. Lauren tried to get her job back. At Morrison and Associates? Yeah. She showed up at HR this morning claiming the whole thing was a misunderstanding and asking Mason Webb to reinstate her. What did Mason say? He laughed, actually laughed. Then he had security escort her out of the building. Good. It gets better. Apparently she's been trying to find work at other companies in the area, but word has gotten around. Nobody wants to hire someone who's under investigation for theft. Consequences. Speaking of which, Derek Morrison got arrested last night. For what? DUI, third offense. He's looking at serious jail time. I felt a momentary pang of sympathy for Derek, then remembered him vandalizing my car and trying to spread lies about me being harmful. The sympathy passed quickly. Sunday evening, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Lauren standing on my doorstep, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Can we talk? We can talk through lawyers. Nick, please, 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She looked around the apartment, our apartment, until 3 weeks ago, like she was seeing it for the first time. I miss this place, she said softly. You should have thought of that before you decided to steal from me and cheat on me. I know I made mistakes. Stop calling them mistakes. Mistakes are accidental. Everything you did was deliberate. Lauren sat down on the couch, the same spot where she'd confessed to the affair 3 weeks earlier. I want to make this right. How? I'll pay you back. Every penny. It might take time, but I'll get a job. Where? You're unemployed and unemployable. Nobody's going to hire you. I'll find something. Even if you do, you're facing criminal charges. You might be going to jail. Lauren started crying. I can't go to jail, Nick. I won't survive it. You should have considered that before you committed crimes. Please, I'm begging you. Drop the charges. I'll do anything. Anything? Yes. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot where this whole mess had started. You want me to drop the charges? Yes. Fine, I'll drop the charges on one condition. Lauren looked up hopefully. What? You write a letter to Tom, apologizing for trying to destroy his reputation. You write a letter to my parents explaining that you lied about why you broke up with me. You write a letter to everyone at Morrison and Associates, admitting that you falsified timesheets and stole money from our joint account. Nick, and you post all of those letters on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere. You take full responsibility for everything you did, and you make it clear that Tom, me, and everyone else were victims of your deception. Lauren stared at me. That would ruin my reputation. Your reputation is already ruined. This just makes sure everyone knows why. I can't do that. Then enjoy your criminal trial. She left without another word. Monday morning brought the final piece of the puzzle. Catherine Bennett called with news about Paul's bail hearing. He couldn't make bail. His wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, froze all their joint accounts, and none of his friends were willing to help. So he's staying in jail? Until trial. Could be months. What about the gambling debts? That's the beautiful part. His creditors are fighting over his assets, but there aren't enough assets to go around. He's going to file for bankruptcy, which means we'll probably never see our money. But his life is destroyed? Completely. He'll lose his house, his car, his savings, everything. When he gets out of jail, he'll be starting over with nothing. Good. That afternoon, Lauren's parents made one final attempt to save their daughter. They showed up at my office with their lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mr. Carver, the lawyer said, my clients are prepared to offer you $25,000 to settle all claims against their daughter. I told them 50. 25 is our final offer. I leaned back in my chair, considering. 25,000 would cover the stolen money plus legal fees and some compensation for the hassle. Deal, I said. But I have conditions. What conditions? Lauren pleads guilty to theft charges. She serves whatever sentence the judge gives her. She writes the apology letters I mentioned, and she stays away from me, my family, and anyone I work with for the rest of her life. The lawyer looked at Richard and Patricia Mitchell. They whispered among themselves for a moment. Agreed, Richard said finally. Good. Have the check and the signed plea agreement on my desk by tomorrow morning or the deal's off. They left and I sat alone in my office, watching the sun set over the city. It was over. 3 days later, Lauren Mitchell pleaded guilty to theft in the 3rd degree and was sentenced to 6 months in county jail, followed by 2 years of probation. She also agreed to pay restitution and perform community service. Paul Bennett was sentenced to 18 months for fraud and gambling violations. His divorce was finalized while he was in prison, leaving him with nothing but debt and a criminal record. Derek Morrison got 2 years for his 3rd DUI, plus additional time for the vandalism charge. Tom got promoted to senior account coordinator and started dating a nice woman from the marketing department. I got a promotion to regional manager and bought a house in a better neighborhood. And on a warm Friday evening in October, exactly 6 months after my canceled wedding, I sat on the deck of my new house, drinking a beer and watching the sunset. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you can forgive me someday. L. I deleted the message without responding. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. I raised my beer to the sunset and smiled. Justice, it turned out, was a dish best served with a side of consequences.